morning. I'm Jennifer McHugh from Royal Credit Union, Chair of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee. Welcome to this edition of our virtual Eggs and Issues. Today's topic is the annual State of the City Address, where we'll hear from City of Eau Claire leaders about their accomplishments and challenges. We'll be getting started soon, but first, a few announcements. The Eggs and Issues series is a Chamber business advocacy event. Investors include Partner Level, Xcel Energy, Advocate Level, Myron Construction, Supporter Level, Banbury Place, Saigon Properties, Eau Claire Energy Cooperative, HSHS Sacred Heart, and St. Joseph's Hospitals.
And good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Rogers, the Chamber's Vice President, Governmental Affairs. If you've been turning into any of our Chamber programs over these last few months, you know that we've been utilizing Paragon from Wind Technology as a webcasting solution so that we can bring you these programs. We also want to acknowledge the organizations that are sponsoring all of the Chamber's Paragon programming, and that includes Prevail Bank and Royal Credit Union. We want to let you know that this program is being recorded, and as a registered participant, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording as soon as it's available. Also want to mention that this program is the property of the Eau Claire Area Chamber of Commerce, and any commercial or political use of the content is prohibited without express written permission. As we get started this morning, just a couple things to point out to make this a worthwhile program for you today. First of all, in the upper left of your screen, you see a chat box. If you have any questions for our presenters today, please enter them there, and we will be monitoring that. And then at the end of the presentation, we do plan to have a question and answer session. Also, do want to let you know that we are going to be showing a few videos during the course of the presentation today. There are a couple of the videos where the volume is a little bit lower, so just give you a heads up that you may need to turn your volume up on your speakers during a couple of the videos. Also want to point out some additional resources you may want to take advantage of. On the lower left of your screen are some links. One says City of Eau Claire. That's a direct link to the city's website for more information on a lot of things with the City of Eau Claire. Also coming up on March 8th to the 11th is the 27th Annual Chippewa Valley Rally. If you've been involved in that event in the past, you know that we take 100 or so business and community leaders from Chippewa Falls, Menominee, and Eau Claire to Madison for a day to talk to the state legislature and other policymakers in Madison about important economic priorities for our communities. Well, it's not really feasible to do that this year, so we're going to be doing it over the course of 4 days, March 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, in sort of bite-sized portions. There's a link there to more information, including the issues we'll be talking about, so I encourage you to go there and to consider joining us. I guess you could look at it, you can go to Madison without having to leave your home or office, and you can do it for a few minutes each day as we have those programs. Also, our next Eggs and Issues is on March 19th, and that'll be a DC update from Capitol Hill. We'll have a guest with us from Washington with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Every level of government right now has a lot going on affecting businesses, and of course with the new Congress and President and many things moving through Washington right now, that'll be a timely program as well. Jen?
Thanks, Scott. Lots of exciting things going on, and hope our friends can join in. Our program today will be led by the top elected and appointed leaders of the City of Eau Claire, City Council President Terry Weld and Acting City Manager Dave Solberg. Terry is a longtime local business person and realtor. He served on the City Council since 2017, having previously held the position of Chair of the Plan Commission. Terry was elected as City Council President in a special election in 2019 and was elected to a full 3-year term in 2020. Dave has been with the City of Eau Claire since 2013, serving as Engineering Director and City Engineer. Last October, he began service as Interim City Manager upon the retirement of Dale Peters. Before joining the city, Dave held key civil engineering positions for over 19 years with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. He holds a degree in civil engineering from UW-Platteville. Take it away, Terry and Dave.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Scott. Good morning, Eau Claire. I am Terry Weld, President of the Eau Claire City Council, and on behalf of our entire City Council, I am honored to present to you the 2021 Eau Claire State of the City. Joining me this morning is our own interim city manager, Dave Solberg. Mr. Solberg, good morning.
Thank you, Terry, and good morning, everyone. As Terry mentioned, I am the interim city manager, Dave Solberg, and I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the State of the City address this morning. I'd also like to thank Ms. Kathy Marole, Ms. Tess Morgan, and Mr. Bob Nelson for their tireless work on this morning's presentation. I'm honored to be here with you to share the challenges and successes of the City of Eau Claire from 2020.
In addition to looking back at 2020, we want to take a look forward to share with you our goals and vision for 2021 and how we as a community will continue to move forward. Just like you, over the past 12 months, we have adapted, reconfigured, and readjusted the way we do business in order to meet the many needs of this community in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. This was only possible because of you and the collaborative spirit of our regional partners, our business community members, our neighbors and constituents, our families, and our friends, the frontline heroes, the essential employees, and our responders, our city staff, and our city council members. You are all amazing, and thank you. Joining us this morning virtually are city council members Emily Berge, Jill Christofferson, Jeremy Gregert, David Klinkhammer, Council Vice President Catherine Emmanuelle, and Mai Zhang. And I want to recognize and thank each of them, along with those council members that are not able to join us here this morning, for their dedication, their passion, and commitment to this community.
And I would like to thank our department directors, Health Director Lieske Giese, Library Director Pamela Westby, Community Services Director Renee Tyler, Police Chief Matt Rokus, and Fire Chief Chris Bell, City Attorney Steve Nick, Finance Director Jay Winzens, Community Development Director Scott Allen, Human Resources Director Vicki Sultan, and Acting City Engineer Leah Ness. They are the managers and the leaders who help guide the organization forward. With each day and each twist and turn that came our way this year, they were nimble in their response and never wavered from the goal of providing the best services possible for the City of Eau Claire. And we want to acknowledge their hard work and dedication to the community. Perhaps the most visible team member since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic has been our Health Director, Lieske Giese. Lieske has a few words to share with us this morning about this past year.
Thank you, Dave. Eau Claire is an amazing city, a city that cares. I can't imagine leading a health department in the past year in any other place. Yes, 2020 has been enormously challenging, in ways too many to remember or to mention. It's also been a year with enormous gifts. What I do briefly want to say about loss and challenges, I'll say quickly. I miss hugging my mother. I miss cramming all of our 70 staff into a meeting room to problem solve and celebrate retirements. We've all had to change, but I'm also privileged. 2020 is a year that people in this community will remember because they lost a family member. 2020 is a year that people lost their jobs and couldn't pay rent. Those are challenges. Today, though, I want to talk about the gifts we saw this year. March 19th was our first case of COVID-19. You may not know, but we started planning well before March for events like this. In fact, the community has had a broad stakeholder group meeting for years, probably more than 15, to plan for and respond to public health emergencies, the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Committee. It was a team that walked into COVID-19 knowing each other. This knowledge has been an amazing strength. We had plans. We knew if we could, we would start implementing them, and we did. From the beginning, the leadership for COVID-19 in Eau Claire has included so many partners, not just public health and healthcare, which is the typical world of communicable disease. I'll share a few examples with you today. Communication has always been important in an emergency. In March, we did a joint press conference with leadership in healthcare, education, and government. This seems like a long time ago. We were standing then shoulder to shoulder, showing the community that we had it. Later, virtual conferences and a shared website and shared messaging across all sectors has been a priority. We have K-12 and higher ed school staff that have said yes to setting up their buildings and processes to decrease disease. They've been doing contact tracing, K-12, UW Eau Claire, CVTC, something they definitely don't have in their job descriptions. In Eau Claire, different than many communities, we haven't seen spread of COVID-19 in classrooms. We have a large group of young adults working on our team as disease investigators. They've had difficult phone calls with those that are COVID positive in their close contacts. They have graciously and effectively shown us the amazing power of the next generation of public health leaders. We have business leaders that have showed up and stepped forward and brought their colleagues together to keep their businesses open, to slow down the spread. Chippewa Valley Economic Recovery Task Force, Visit Eau Claire, and the Chamber, among many. Leadership has worked on messaging and education and resources that have helped the Chippewa Valley. The pandemic has made what is a difficult situation by those that experience racism and poverty and homelessness and language barriers and incarceration and many other tough situations worse with COVID. We have had organizations across the community in Eau Claire, like the Black and Brown Women's Power Coalition and Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, and others step forward and help. We have healthcare leaders who are fiercely competitive, but have worked together and said, we have a shared voice to test and treat and make sure we're protecting. And we've had city and county workers across this community making a difference with COVID-19. Today, I'm remembering all the gifts and opportunities we've had. I thank Eau Claire for that. A community that cares is a community that will thrive.
Thank you, Lieske. Words alone cannot express the gratitude this community has for your compassionate leadership. From the very early days of the pandemic, you and your staff have stood strong together, working with this community and its partners to meet and overcome the challenges of dealing with a virus this world has never seen before. It has been and continues to be a Herculean effort. Our sincere thanks and appreciation. And now, I'll look at just a few of the faces of Eau Claire from the year 2020. Please take a moment to appreciate the efforts of the many members of our community that choose to volunteer, to share, lift, support, comfort, and serve and care for this community, our great city of Eau Claire. So here is the 2021 State of the City. Any other year, this would have been an opportunity for us to share with you the successes and triumphs of the previous year. But as we all know, 2020 was not like any other year. And how we begin to truly reflect on it is a challenging question. How do we speak to a year that, frankly, no one wants to remember? The answer is simple. We begin and share with you the state of the city with pride. Pride in this community for continuing its efforts to serve and remain true to our mission of assuring the common good through services essential for a safe, sustainable, engaged, and healthy community. Pride in its efforts to create affordable housing and address and improve poor living conditions in our area properties. We initiated identifiable information protection to eliminate hiring biases. We accelerated the implementation of body-worn cameras and are expanding policing partnerships with community organizations. We opened city facilities and aided in the relocation of the Sojourner House so that they could continue serving the most vulnerable among us during a pandemic, giving them a place to stay while still maintaining the physical distance necessary to slow the spread of COVID. We defended against excessive tax claims and helped lead one of the most successful censuses in the state of Wisconsin. We launched Evolved by InfoVision, an online permitting and e-inspection system to make it easier for building professionals and the at-home do-it-yourselfer to get the permits they need. And the library placed a story walk in Owen Park to give people a new and engaging way to interact with reading while enjoying one of our beautiful parks. These are just a few of the ways we've worked together to create the future we all want for Eau Claire.
I'd like to highlight two especially significant accomplishments representing the spirit and effort shown by the city in 2020. The first being safe, fair, accessible, and transparent elections in one of the most closely watched election years in recent memory. The efforts and innovation of election staff, consisting of community members and staff volunteers, and our city clerk, Carrie Reeple, led to record numbers of ballots being cast by mail and never before seen drive-through voting. In-person voting was still held safely, as scheduled, for voters who prefer the tradition of casting their ballots in their neighborhood polling place. The second accomplishment was keeping City Hall, city facilities, and the transit division open, providing essential services the public expects and needs without interruption. The water stayed on, sewers were maintained, emergency crews still responded, housing was provided for those in need, and the transit system got people to their essential jobs and appointments without losing an hour of service all year. In a year of change, face-to-face meetings went online, and in-person business became largely electronic. 2020 changed how we did business, but we didn't stop doing business. I'm proud to say we did not close a single business day in 2020. We are also proud that our city continued to receive national recognition in different areas throughout the year. We received recognition for the best historic renovation for City Hall, being a top 10 best college town, and being the third most livable small city. Additionally, we were in the top 5 cities for most affordable homes, the top 25 small towns that are about to become more popular, and finally we ranked 28th on the top 100 best places to live. Truly some remarkable acknowledgments.
Congratulations to our city for the continued recognition. This truly is a wonderful place to live. So let's move forward with a question. Why are so many communities more able than others to solve the difficult social, political, economic, or physical changes they face? This was a question raised by the National Civic League in 1986, and the answer they arrived at was civic capital. The formal and informal relationships, networks, and capacities that communities use to make decisions and solve problems. Here at Eau Claire, we have witnessed and experienced the great successes of civic capital, where our residents, businesses, nonprofits, and other stakeholders have all come together to develop solutions to problems that are not only effective and long-lasting, but also inclusive in their implementation. Mr. Solberg and I, along with 7 members of our community, will share with you the importance of recognizing and supporting civic capital already here in our community, and how we will continue to build on it moving forward.
Thank you, Terry. Our first component of civic capital is engaged residents. A healthy community relies on its residents to play an active role in shaping the actions and decisions of government. The government cannot, nor should not, do it alone. We have active and involved community members in Eau Claire, and a pandemic did not stop them or dampen their spirit. Our city attorney's office engaged with future community leaders through the Leadership Eau Claire programs, while our neighborhood associations played a key role in enlisting community members to help design the future of Eau Claire, weighing in on everything from a parking study to adopting neighborhood plans. We moved forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome Kevin Rosenberg, President of the 3rd Ward Neighborhood Association.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, I'm Kevin Rosenberg, and I chair the 3rd Ward Neighborhood Association. You know, a healthy community like Eau Claire depends on its residents playing an active role and participating in our own government. And the neighborhood associations are one of the key ways that we do that. Now, unlike a homeowners association, a neighborhood association is far more inclusive. We welcome everybody, and we want everyone to participate. You don't have to buy a home in the 3rd Ward or Eau Claire to participate in our neighborhood associations. You just have to move here. You could be a student renting an apartment, you could be a visiting academic, or you could be a homeowner. We want all of the residents to participate. And it's through this participation that our government becomes even better. Now, neighborhood associations weigh in on all kinds of different things that occur in our communities, such as maybe a proposed new roundabout or a conditional use permit, or even writing our neighborhood plan. And we do all of that as we come together. Well, we were coming together in a classroom, but because of COVID, we were forced outdoors. And then winter came and we were forced online, but we didn't stop. We still kept on with our work because it's important to the city that we do our work. I'd like to thank the staff and the elected officials of Eau Claire for a great 2020. And I want you to know that in 2021, our neighborhood associations are poised to do even more. Right now, we're working on putting together an association of the neighborhood associations so that we can further collaborate across our different communities and build an even stronger Eau Claire for 2021. So thank you all for your work, and we're ready to keep working all the way through to 2022.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Our second component is inclusive community leadership. A healthy community is one that facilitates equitable, inclusive leadership among community boards, commissions, and committees. It should be possible for any resident to rise to a leadership position. 2020 marked a year when the City Council invited and challenged community members to become more active participants in shaping the future of Eau Claire by adding their names to the Citizen Resource Bank, a list of volunteers that is used to support the city's boards, committees, and commissions. The Advisory Committee on Appointments and the existing boards, committees, and the commissions also took a step forward by encouraging diversity in their memberships and was instrumental in creating equitable and inclusive paths to leadership within the community. We move forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome Brooke, Jeein, Newmaster.
Thank you, Terry. My name is Brooke Jeein Newmaster, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. For the past year, I have had the honor of serving on the Pablo Center's Board of Directors, as well as serving on the Eau Claire Public Arts Council. Leadership that reflects the diversity of the community makeup and the community members who advocate for diversity and inclusion is, of course, fundamental. We will move forward in 2021, making commitments to further our understanding of authentic work in inclusion. Being included is not enough. Acknowledging that tokenizing practices of simply having people of color and other underrepresented peoples in a community leadership isn't the destination. Working to support that leadership and robustly fostering understanding and intentionally building a safe environment needs to be part of the goal. We cannot be an inclusive city without recognizing the daily racism and microaggressions many in our community face. White leadership needs to continue to learn how to recognize racism and bias in order for inclusive leadership practices to be effective and sustainable. Let's double down in 2021 and commit to anti-racism practices and policy making that supports inclusivity. We will continue to create more intentional pathways for underrepresented communities to network, create conversations, and to be included at the beginning of initiatives, making a more welcoming Eau Claire that is a desirable and inviting space for new leadership opportunities. As Terry stated, it should be possible for any resident to rise to a leadership position. Let's work together to ensure that anyone who wants to lead in the arts, business and economic growth, government, community building, and social change has authentic support to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newmaster. Our third component of civic capital is collaborative institutions. A healthy community is one where collaboration, cooperation, ideas, and shared goals flow across institutions in the community. The organizations representing government, faith, business, health, education, and more share ideas, support initiatives, and collaborate openly and transparently for the community good. This should be the way a healthy community operates routinely. This should be its standard practice. The success of the Confluence Project was an example of this, and that same spirit continued strong into 2020 with the Sonotake Project. This exciting project will be a partnership between UW-Eau Claire, Mayo Clinic, the City of Eau Claire, Visit Eau Claire, and others. It will provide services that increase health, nutrition, education, fitness, recreation, community gathering to a level that would not be possible without all institutions collaborating and working toward the community good. We move forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome Mike Rindo, retired assistant UW-Eau Claire Chancellor, for a few words on collaborative institutions.
Thanks, Dave. When I think of collaboration, a phrase comes to mind. Change happens at the speed of trust. Collaboration is not something you can turn on and off like a light switch. It requires investment in relationship building, establishing mutual goals, and, of course, working together in the spirit of trust. A lot of people through the years have asked me, how does Eau Claire do it? How does Eau Claire collaborate across so many sectors on so many different initiatives and projects? What's the magic in the water? And the answer is, there is no magic. Collaboration is hard work. I think back to the Clear Vision process of 13 or 14 years ago, where the community came together to establish a vision of what it wanted to be like in 20 years. From that Clear Vision process came the Confluence Project. And what a project that has been for downtown Eau Claire. Haymarket Landing, the public plaza, the footbridge across the Eau Claire River, and of course the Pablo Center for the Arts. The Sonotake Center on Menominee Street holds the same kind of promise for the community as the Confluence Project. Mayo Clinic, the university, the city, and Visit Eau Claire are working on ways to be able to construct a new event center and Mayo Clinic sports medicine clinic that will benefit not only the university, not only Mayo Clinic, not only Visit Eau Claire, but our entire community. This is something that's been discussed in this community for many decades. And in 2021, I know the work is going to continue in order to see how this wonderful vision can come to fruition. So, hard work and change happens at the speed of trust.
Thank you, Mr. Rindo. The fourth component of civic capital is embracing diversity and equity. A healthy community embraces and celebrates its diversity. It recognizes diversity as an asset and equity as an opportunity. Embracing diversity not only is the right thing to do to honor each other as human beings, but also it pays concrete dividends. Recent research into the impact of inequality or economic growth found that greater equality of opportunity yields greater growth in our communities. 2020 was a year where the city worked to be mindful and to embrace diversity. The Transformation Project was created to foster further change, equity, and inclusivity across the multiple sectors and organizations in the community. It will also help create and further develop equity, diversity, and a welcoming environment for employees, customers, residents, and visitors to our region, for all people in our community. We move forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome UW-Eau Claire Director of Multicultural Affairs and Transformation Project Co-Chair, Jeein.
Thank you, Terry. The civic capital topic of embracing equity and diversity is a hallmark of a healthy community where the diversity of its community members is not only celebrated, but that those voices are included and have agency in how we strive for equitable services, support, and engagement. The City of Eau Claire embraces these values, and we would be the first to admit that our community still has a long way to go as we aspire to being a leader in equity, diversity, and inclusion, or EDI. But that knowledge of how far we still have to go is not a deficiency for our community. Absolutely not. In fact, it is one of our strengths, namely our ability and willingness to see and envision where it is that we still need to go. Moreover, our commitment to equitable outcomes is not a fleeting moment. It is not a fad, and it most certainly is not a phase. The momentum that we see today toward this aspiration is built upon a foundation that has taken decades of coalition building, organizing, and advocacy to create. Today, we see this in a variety of examples, including our Eau Claire Area School District's adoption and implementation of their equitable multi-level systems of support framework, as well as the local area Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce's multi-year effort with their diversity and inclusion task force. We also see this in examples such as the City of Eau Claire's current search to hire their new equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator. We see this in the healthcare system, the Mayo Clinic's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, as well as their local diversity and inclusion committee. The University of Eau Claire also has a recent establishment of the Center for Racial and Restorative Justice, and there are so many more examples that highlight the wide footprint of EDI across our city. And it's not just these particular organizations and initiatives, but it's also the agencies and nonprofit organizations that are committed to serving and advocating for our most underserved community members. These include the Aging and Disability Resource Center, JONA, the Eau Claire Area Hmong Mutual Assistance Association, El Centro de Conexión de Chippewa Valley, as well as the Black and Brown Women Power Coalition, the Chippewa Valley LGBTQ+ Center, Uniting Bridges, and so many more. We have in our community a network of advocates, a series of initiatives, and a whole host of community leaders who are all dedicated toward advancing our commitment toward equity, diversity, and inclusion. And what we have now at our fingertips is the opportunity to continue to strengthen this coalition of stakeholders who are committed to advancing issues of social justice. While there certainly is still so much that we need to do in our aspiration toward equity, there is most certainly so much that we have to be proud of here in the city of Eau Claire.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Our fifth component of civic capital is authentic communication. A healthy community shares information with residents in an authentic, transparent way. In addition to communication with the public, a healthy community includes trustful, civic-minded, news-gathering organizations as well. In the early days of the COVID pandemic, there was confusion, people were panicked and stressed. It became clear that the ways and frequency with which we communicated with people needed to change to meet the challenges of the new reality we faced together. Many traditional ways of interacting with residents became impossible or impractical. But very quickly, we developed new, accessible, inclusive avenues for communication and engagement. City council meetings are a good example of the tremendous change seen in 2020. It is now possible for someone in their home to actively participate and communicate at city council public meetings. Communication within the community also changed and adapted and improved. We moved forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome Nick Meyer, owner, editor, publisher of Volume 1.
The idea of authentic communication is clearly evolving in this very moment. And much about communication over the last year has been awkward and frustrating. It's awkward masked and in person. It's awkward virtually on a Zoom call. And it's certainly frustrating pretty much constantly on social media. It's enough to make you not want to communicate at all. Yet we're at a moment as a community and a society that it's more important than ever that we keep communication lines open. At Volume 1, as a media organization, though perhaps a slightly untraditional one, it's always been important to us to be authentic in how we interact with the community. We want our coverage of this place to be in conversation with the community, not simply broadcasting to it. And that's what it takes for a government to succeed in its communication as well. Be upbeat and excited when things are good. Be honest and forthright when maybe it's not. And have multiple accessible channels to authentically listen to and interact with the community's own ideas and insights. Basically, behave like one of them, down from any authoritative ivory tower. The methods and mediums for all of this are changing as we speak. At Volume 1, it means in addition to print issues, a daily website, social media pages and events, which we can hopefully do again someday soon, we now add more videos, podcasts, and other digital means of reaching community members where they are. So while communication of any kind right now can feel like a bit of a minefield, the work is important. It builds trust, creates relationships, and helps us move through moments like this one together toward the goals we all share for this incredible community.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Our sixth component of civic capital is the culture of engagement. A healthy community does not view engagement as a task or a chore. It's not simply providing surveys, holding mandatory meetings, and reaching the minimum number of residents required. A healthy community approaches engagement as an opportunity for growth, a chance to truly listen to and strive to understand, and in turn learn from its residents about their vision on policies, projects, and programs. 2020 brought broad, inclusive engagement on many fronts, from design ideas for a new fountain in Wilson Park to peaceful demonstrations and virtual town hall meetings this past summer. Despite the fact that we were all fighting a pandemic by using social distancing, we continued to strive to engage and connect with people, even if it had to be from 6 feet away. We continued listening and learning, and will continue to listen and learn. We moved forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome Matt Rokus, Chief of Police for the City of Eau Claire.
Thank you, Dave. We are fortunate to have an engaged community whose members care about the success of all who live, work, and study in Eau Claire. The level of engagement we enjoy is not by accident. It is a result of our shared beliefs and our social connectedness. It is a result of our culture. This culture has been built, constructed through intentional effort, whether it is connecting community members with programs aimed at strengthening neighborhood associations, or creating physical space where people can interact. Eau Claire's culture of engagement is critical for a number of reasons. As individual community members, we are invested. We care about outcomes. As public officials, engagement is absolutely necessary. Our role is to provide services consistent with our community's expectations. Our decisions, priorities, and strategies need to be informed by those we serve. Accomplished through constructive dialogue with diverse and varied perspectives. We do this to leverage insights, to shape programs, and improve services. 2020 highlighted the importance our culture of engagement had in holding us together during a difficult time. This past year will always be remembered in part by the death of George Floyd. This tragedy serves as a callous reminder of our nation's unresolved history with racial injustice. The weeks that followed were a time for many of us to listen to our community. It was a time for introspection, and it was a time for action. The community contributions to improvements in policing came in many ways. Public forums, city council work sessions, athletic events, individual meetings, and diligent work by caring community members and city staff. Positive change that was community informed occurred because of our culture. Effective policing, like the quality delivery of all city services, requires intentional efforts to strengthen trust that's strengthened through our institution's integrity, our professionalism, fairness, and openness. This work is never done. We must be committed to ongoing and consistent action. It's how we build and maintain our culture of engagement. It's also how we realize the vision we share for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Rokus. Our seventh and final component of civic capital is shared vision and values. A healthy community fosters an environment where all residents feel empowered to help develop a community vision. Engaged residents become personally invested in the vision and future of our community. 2020 brought the initiation of several efforts to help create that shared vision. Comprehensive plan review, participatory budgeting, and the creation of equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator and a shared response coordinator, to name just a few of our city's advancements. And our city's budget has begun to reflect the shared vision and values of our diverse residents. We move forward in 2020, not back. Please welcome City Council Vice President, Catherine Emmanuelle.
Thanks, Terry. The seventh component of civic capital is shared vision and values. The National League of Cities explains that plans that are embedded in meaningful community engagement are more durable, realistic, and likely to inform future action. Simply put, it's real people power in Eau Claire that informs our city's actions. Let's look at the annual budget process. Each year, the city works on a capital improvement plan. While there is extensive professional expertise, our city knows that we can strengthen our outcomes if we engage citizens. Our city has budgeted real money through a process called Participatory Budgeting that empowers people to prioritize $100,000 each year in capital projects. Like many things, COVID has slowed down the process. However, dedicated staff continue to advance the council's initiatives. We cannot do this alone. In fact, we've partnered with UW Eau Claire students and professors to create conceptual logos and a stakeholder assessment. Our city will build upon this collaborative work to form a steering committee later this spring. When we think of building real people power, this means that we look at a comprehensive equity, diversity, and inclusion framework for our entire community. This year, the city is partnering with the county to hire our first equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator. This position will increase our civic capital, helping to move us closer to aligning our vision, values, and goals and objectives to lift up our growing workforce and a community growing in a very treasured diversity. While our community has made strides forward, we have a ways to go. You have the city's continued commitment to making our vision, mission, values, and strategic plan come to life through policies and initiatives that reflect engagement, equity, economic prosperity, sustainability, and health woven together to make our city vibrant for all.
Thank you, City Council Vice President Emmanuelle. Saying 2020 wasn't a typical year is probably an understatement, but we still accomplished a lot. Just a few of the many important accomplishments for our community were adopting the Renewable Energy Action Plan, the REAP, updating the parking study, implementing Adopt a Trail and Safe Routes to Parks programs, and undertaking major recruitments for the Community Services Director and the new City Manager. Our City Attorney's Office provided legal counsel for the COVID response team, while our Finance Department helped with its purchasing and logistics. Construction continued with the completion of West Grand Plaza, numerous street projects, and the replacement of 50 lead-lined water lines. 399 dwelling units were approved with rents that qualify as workforce housing. That is a truly remarkable number. The planning and design of the library project continued. The Chippewa Valley Economic Recovery Task Force was created, and the police department engaged residents in peaceful demonstrations and community town hall meetings. Here's an amazing fact. The library loaned 259,902 items contactless to the community. 2020 wrapped up with our fire department being certified to help protect and vaccinate our community with the upcoming COVID-19 vaccine.
In addition to the many accomplishments of 2020, we also wished a happy retirement to our city manager, Dale Peters. Dale served the city of Eau Claire for over 31 years, and the last 5 of those years as our city manager. Dale announced his retirement just prior to the 2020 State of the City. Shortly thereafter, though, COVID-19 reached our community, and selflessly, Dale postponed his retirement by several months in order to lead the city he loves through this pandemic crisis. Mr. Peters, again, thank you.
And along with Dale's retirement, there were 19 other city employees who also retired in 2020. These 20 retirees left the organization after tallying a combined 476 years of service. That is almost 24 years of service to our city, to our community, by each employee. Truly a remarkable achievement. We say thank you to each and every retiree for their service and wish them all a happy and healthy retirement. In 2021, we will re-engage with the strategic plan. We will continue to make the city one that works for everyone. Unfortunately, many initiatives were not possible with the safety protocols brought by the pandemic. But when the headwinds of COVID wane, our efforts to move the city's strategic goals and objectives forward will increase. We have several significant projects and initiatives we're focused on, starting with groundbreaking on the library and transit center projects, and also the Sonotake Center, advancing participatory budgeting, increasing organizational equity, diversity, and inclusion, while working towards making the city of Eau Claire the most welcoming and inclusive city in the Midwest. Also on the list is continuing to make meaningful, measurable, and visible progress with affordable housing, as well as addressing the growing retail vacancy rates. The legal support and advocacy of affordable housing and economic development will continue as well. And supporting local businesses will be essential as they recover from the COVID economic disaster. We will also complete a community-wide property reevaluation. That's certainly no small task. And we will continue participating in the fight against COVID. And will make supporting the vaccination of our community a top priority.
As you can see, we have a lot to look forward to in 2021, a year that surely will bring about new initiatives, new developments, and new challenges, but also a year, like so many recent years, that will bring us face to face with the financial challenges that lay ahead of us. The reality of reduced revenues and rapidly rising costs will soon become the biggest hurdle we face as a community, and new growth and developed expansion will become a must if we are to continue to meet the needs of our residents. With all of this, alternative revenue sources will need to be discussed and eventually pursued. In the meantime, we persevere and we push forward. That's what Eau Claire does. To close, I first want to thank Scott Rogers and Dave Meyer and their staff for hosting this event. Also, a big thank you to Win for producing and sharing this event. I also want to recognize and thank the Chamber itself for its efforts to support our area businesses and not only helping restore our economy, but build on it as we move forward. A huge thank you to our amazing city staff that holds this city together, working tirelessly to meet the needs of so many. They continue to show all of us what 500 and plus dedicated and caring employees can accomplish when they come together to serve a community. To the residents of Eau Claire, our sincere thanks. 2020 was a year that we learned so much as we challenged each other, engaged with each other, spoke out, and listened. We demonstrated in the streets, we mourned, we stood our ground, and at certain times, we agreed to disagree. We declared as a community that we will not tolerate racism, hate, or violence. We proved as a community that we can unite, respond, and meet head-on the challenges of a worldwide pandemic. Because of this, we have become stronger, healthier, and wiser. We opened the doors of understanding to each other. We listened more, we gave more, and can be proud of the work that we've done while still understanding that there is more work to be done. And through it all, prove that we can accomplish anything when we do it together. To my fellow council members, thank you again for all the good that you do. To Ms. Moreau, thank you. Each and every day, like the North Star, you keep us pointed in the right direction, and we are truly grateful. And to Mr. Solberg, your dedication and compassion has already left its mark on our community. We can't thank you enough for taking on the role of interim city manager.
As Terry and I reflected on 2020 and talked about what the state of our city actually is, we realized that despite the fact that we faced some serious obstacles, that time and time again, those obstacles became opportunities for good, for deeper connections with each other, for more meaningful and productive conversations, more opportunities to serve each other in ways that make people feel more valued. It would have been easy to retreat and take a selfish stance of, what about me? But instead, the people of Eau Claire asked, what about my neighbor? They found ways to support small businesses and stood up to support people of color. In 2020, we saw what we can and did happen when a community comes together, whether to fight a virus or to fight racism. 2020 showed us that it's really what's really at the heart and soul of what we value and motivates us as a community. Those are kindness and compassion. I'm personally proud and honored to serve the city, its residents, and our community along so many dedicated, hardworking, and caring people. They are our employees, our volunteers, and our city council. To you, I thank you all. Yes, 2020 brought many struggles, but it brought many more successes. I would like to thank you all for joining us this morning, and thank you for each and everything that you do to make Eau Claire the fun, vibrant community it is, and for making it a wonderful place to call home. Thank you.
Well, we want to thank you, Terry and Dave, for joining us today. There is still time to put in a question in the chat. We actually haven't gotten any, but I do have a couple that I'd like to ask you. And again, we want to thank you for your leadership and for being here with us today. It doesn't seem that long ago that we were at the Lismore Hotel with last year's State of the City. And I vividly recall recognizing Dale Peters leaving, and of course, he stayed on. But we might touch base on where we are on the city manager search. I know that there's been a change in that recently, and if you could just sort of bring us up to speed for our audience, where we are with that and what we could be expecting.
Sure. As of right now, the council has decided to put a pause on the search. We will get together in early fall to reevaluate on whether or not it's the right time to start that search again. Obviously, COVID-19 has created some challenges throughout that, and I think once we feel like our communities are healthier and safer and people are ready to start that discussion, that we will revisit it at that time or decide on that time when we will revisit it.
Right. Dave, you've been with the city for about a little over 7 years now, and now you're acting as interim city manager. What kind of have you learned new this year, other than, of course, the challenges of COVID, about the city as the interim city manager?
You really have a greater understanding when you're in this city manager role or helping with the city manager of all of the strengths that the department heads and managers and all the way through the ranks of the staff level, how they participate, how the leadership of the city relies on everybody to help fill in that puzzle. Some people are stronger in different areas than others, and how you rely on everybody to form a cohesive team. And working with the group, when I was working as a peer, you see one angle, but when you're working from a different level, you really appreciate all of the strengths in the different ways, the different levels of the organization participate to move things forward. You have a new appreciation at the hard work it takes to keep just the essential day-to-day operations going, keep the lights on, keep the water going, keep the sewers flowing, doing all of those essential things that the city needs to survive day-to-day that oftentimes go unnoticed, to build that base so you can add on to it with some more goals of what we would like to do. And it's really humbling to see how hard our staff works and how much they care and engage with the public and care about doing the right thing instead of just their minimum. So I have a new appreciation for all of the staff that I've been able to work with at the city in this new role.
As far as decisions that have had to be made at the city council level in the last year, probably the ones that have generated the most interest have been issues related to COVID-19 and the response to that. First of all, there was the proposed ordinance last fall, and then the mask ordinance that was in fact passed earlier this month. Could you bring us up to speed just where we are in terms of city decision making there? First of all, what do people need to know about the mask ordinance that was passed by both the city and the county earlier this month?
Presently, that's, just sitting there on the shelf. It was something that was passed and approved by both the city and the county in the event that the governor's order would be overturned. And we felt, I think, as a community and as a county that we needed that safeguard there for us, and if that were to happen. And so right now, the governor's order is still in place, requiring the wearing of masks. And that will continue, I would assume, I think until towards the end of March, and at which time it would be reevaluated again at that time. In addition, we're, just starting to get to work on the communicable disease task force that will hopefully lead us into the next generation. In the event something like this were to happen again, it allows us the opportunity to share what we've learned and what's come from this last year that we hopefully can bring forward in the event that something like this were to ever happen again.
One more question. I don't think we've had any others come in, but you've done a really thorough job of talking about the direction of the city, the leadership you're trying to do from the political side and from the staff side. As you look back on the pandemic and as 2020, you've already talked about a lot of the lessons learned. Are there any silver linings, anything that hopefully in a few months we'll make our way out of this, but maybe what's the most important thing you'll apply in the future that you learned through the pandemic that will be useful when things are back to whatever the new normal becomes, or the better one?
I guess I'll start with staff. There are a couple of things that come to mind. The first is the reality of meetings and how we conduct business, and we had a big push to provide our services electronic. We were in a slower pace for that, but it proved that we can accomplish more of our daily business that the public expects from us electronically, whether it be meetings or taking payments or renewing licenses. So that is something that I believe, in addition to when we open to staff or to the public coming in and meeting with staff in person, that convenience will still be there for the public to hopefully perform a wider variety online to do those services. And the second part, I would say, would be how the different levels of the organization came together and started to meet each other. We had members of the staff from virtually every department volunteering to help work together to conduct the election operations. We had a similar event when City Hall was remodeled a few years ago. Instead of being on 6 different levels of City Hall, we were all together on one floor. And it strengthened those connections, seeing people each day and working with them more on a familiar basis day to day. And I think the coming together for the coronavirus pandemic, whether it be for elections or helping with vaccinations or testing, those relationships, once they're formed between the different employees, helps break down some of the silos that were there in the past, and it helps people realize that we're one city organization moving forward, and there's more of a willingness to jump in and all hands on deck, regardless of what department you're in, to meet whatever challenges we'll undoubtedly have in 2021.
Yeah, on the community side, I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen come from this last year is just the coming together, and all the different community partners that now interact, much more than I think we did before, even from the county to the city level, that interaction and sharing services and staff, and really, it's just an amazing, event in that regard that we've all decided that really the only way we're going to get through this is if we come together. I think the second thing that we've seen is just the level of engagement throughout the community, and expressing their ideas, their thoughts, their concerns, letting their voice be heard, and I think that's been consistent throughout the country, and I hope that we can continue to build on both those things. I know that we, I think that's what this council wants, that's what this community wants. Is to have that dialogue, to have that conversation, to understand, what people need and want, and then find a way that we can all work together to provide those things. And I think this community has really stepped up and done all of that so far, and really done a great job. And again, with our community partners, it's just really been an opportunity for us to expand that too.
Right. Well, thanks very much, Terry and Dave. And before we leave, I do want to express a couple more thanks. First of all, everybody that participated in putting this program together today, especially to our technical team. We have off camera Kathy Morrell here from the city, whose name has already been mentioned. We have Kaylin Stallbush and Aaron Smith making sure everything works from this end here at WIN with Paragon. And we have Grace Hansen, one of our interns, who is working on the article that will appear in our Business Advocate newsletter on Monday. Remind you just of a couple things. Also coming up, wanted to encourage you to sign up for the Chippewa Valley Rally. Go to that link, see more information. And then one other city thing, elections have been mentioned. We do have an election coming up on April 6th. There will be the 5 district seats on the city council up on the ballot, and as well as some school board contested elections. And watch for your chamber information, and in the coming weeks we'll have candidate information on those events as well. Next month's Egg and Issues is on March 19th. On behalf of the Chamber and our guests with the city today, we thank you for joining us and have a great weekend.